especially like, for instance, you go to Ivy League school compared to, or Ivy League school or private school compared to like a public school. There's therapists there. You have counselors there. There's someone there to talk to help you navigate through your life bullshit. Compared to like a public school or to a school that's in an urban area, where those things are uncommon and unheard of. You may get your teacher be like, "Oh, it's okay, it's fine, you good, pat your back, go home."
Don't hold back how you feel. Welcome to the platform for the misunderstood and creatives alike. So roll a joint and pour a shot. You're listening to the Dash It Out podcast, the show that brings your after hours talk to daytime. No wrong opinions and all unfiltered. With your host, Vic Tor.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dash It Out Show. Okay, today is going to be an all new season. Well, let me go and rephrase that. Today is going to be a whole new episode, and of course, this is the Dash It Out Show, all unfiltered. Today, we are joined by our co-host, Dr. Wayers, who is a psychologist, author, and speaker. And he's here with us today on the Dash It Out Show. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get into that, and we're gonna dash it out with Dr. Wayers, okay? And then hopefully he don't use none of his psychology tricks on me. Try to figure me out, because I'm low a little bit. So, just a little bit. But yeah, so this is it. I believe we had a psychologist on the Dash It Out Show. I believe season 2. Yeah, he was more of a profiler than a psychologist, but I guess you gotta have a little bit of psychology to profile an individual. So I guess they kind of both intertwine. Yeah, that's about it. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. And for anyone and everyone who's interested in live streaming the Dash It Out show, or really feels that it's something I should get into, just give me a heads up, and I will definitely look into it. But right now, we're gonna go ahead and continue to keep it moving with the podcast. So, oh, yeah, yeah. I'm slightly a bit nervous. I'm slightly a bit nervous. I met a few psychologists in my life. Cause like I said, I'm a bit fucking crazy. So yeah, that's that. I'm a little bit fucked up in the head. So I have to meet a few psychologists. And at one time I was in the psych ward. I mean, in my defense, I was held against my will for 11 days. So that's about it. Shout out to Mount Sinai in New York City. Yeah, Lower East Side. You motherfuckers know who I'm talking about. Y'all know who the fuck I'm talking about. Fucking assholes. But hopefully Dr. Wayers is not like those dicks who held me against my motherfucking will for 11 days and had a nerve and audacity to release me the day after my birthday. Ha, interesting. But this is going to be a whole different topic, whole different scenario, whole different shebang. Today he's going to be talking about his book, which is Hidden in Plain Sight, How Men's Fears of Women Shape Their Intimate Relationships. And he's here with us today. Hi, Dr. Wayers. Hi, did I pronounce your name?
How are you?
I'm doing great. Did I pronounce
Weiss.
Weiss?
Weiss.
Weiss.
Sounds like you started without me.
Yeah, just introducing you. Let me go ahead and, just get into it. So, yeah, so once again, this is Dr. Weiss, everyone, a psychologist, author, and speaker, and he's an award-winning author of his co-written book in the most recent Hidden in Plain Sight, How Men's Fears of Women Shape Their Intimate Relationships. And now living on an island in mid-coast Maine, Dr. Weiss, sorry, his consultation online, but he's here with us today on the Dash It Out show.
Hi.
So can you go ahead and just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm an author and a psychologist, and for the last dozen years or so, I've been very interested. I tend to get interested in topics that get overlooked, that most people sort of just take for granted, and I think men are one of those topics. I think there's been an awful lot of interest in understanding more about women over the last few decades, and not nearly enough attention paid to understanding men, and particularly more the inner world of men. So that's what's been mostly of interest to me the last decade or so.
I love it. Love that you're able to definitely dive into what most considered unknown in a sense. I mean, these men as men, both men. What are some factors that can play a vital role in a relationship when it comes to the men women dynamic? Like, what are the factors that kind of disrupt the relationship, and how can we improve on those factors?
Well, the last book I wrote is was about something that really was a surprise to me, was to realize how frightened men are of women in interrelationships, and I think that has a great deal to do with the difficulties that men and women have in intimate relationship with each other. Is that neither men nor women really understand how frightened men can be, and so they misinterpret a lot of things that men do, not understanding that they're really often coming from fear.
Yeah, it's funny because it just kind of takes you back to being in school. Being I guess I guess like being in first, second grade, elementary, middle school, or even high school. Being like you're just afraid to approach that girl that you have a crush on. You're just afraid she's gonna turn you down, and it's like we as men we kind of have all these notions in our head. Oh, should I approach it this way? Should I approach it that way? And it's ironic how even in our adult years it still sticks with us. We still have this insecurity about our approach and how should we go about it. Um, I definitely was told. I grew up with a lot of sisters. What do you mean a lot? I mean five sisters. So I think I have a brief insight into the mindset of women, and it's like the standards that women hold for men. Sometimes they're unattainable. I mean, they're not always unreasonable, but sometimes they're unattainable, and it can make a guy feel insignificant. And could that be a key factor as to why men kind of develop this psychological need to try to prove themselves to a woman? Because even in the animal kingdom, certain species would either put on a dance or put on a show to attract the opposite sex. They let you know, like, I'm perfect for you, I'm great, I'm ideal. Essentially, like a peacock, when the male peacock show their feathers to a female peacock is to signify, I'm open, I'm ready. This is me. I'm ready for you, baby. It's something that's been throughout the beginning of time when it comes to the dynamic of the relationship between men and women. But with men, it's more prone psychological, and that's where you're getting at with your book, and in the plain sight. Now, how has your level of expertise, helped build relationships or rebuild relationships?
How do people rebuild relationships, you're saying?
Yeah, like how, like far as your work, have you gotten any feedback in regards to your work that helped motivated or rebuild a relationship? Like, what are some takeaways from your
Sure.
book that can help rebuild a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what the book's all about, is helping people to get beyond those fears and to build stronger relationships. And I think most people would say that to be closer to somebody, you start by understanding them, and you understand people by listening. And so I think sort of a critical first step is that for women, it's really a pretty radical idea that men are afraid of them.
Mm.
And so when women begin to understand what some of those fears that men have, then I think that immediately starts improving things in the relationship, because they start seeing men less as withholding and engaged in power struggles, and more understanding the vulnerability
Yeah.
that men are actually coming from. And the example that you gave about guys being afraid to approach women is absolutely spot on. But I want to make sure your listeners understand that what I'm talking about here is not just courtship, is not just being afraid or intimidated of a woman about dating, but that these issues really go on more profoundly in long-term relationships. Things like men being afraid of being criticized, men being afraid of being inadequate to meet their women's needs. These
Mm.
are issues that are not just around dating and courtship, but continue throughout the length of intimate heterosexual relationships.
Okay, definitely. It's the long term, and typically in most cases, when it comes to long term relationships, there's always the sexual factor. As you know, there's always that sexual factor. Got to think like, okay, am I big enough? Am I able to sexually please my woman? There's so many insecurity that men have. Like, okay, well, maybe my penis size is not the right size she wants. I'm working with like a 6.5, 7, and she wants a 12, 14 inch. Like it's some of those kind of type of things as men we kind of think about, regardless if we don't want to or not. Sometimes, if you secure within yourself, secure within your partner, then it shouldn't be an issue. But since we're on a topic of long term relationships, those issues tend to arise. Like, am I able to sexually please my woman? Am I keeping her entertained? Like, where's her mind drifting to when we make having sex? Where's her mind drifting to? I'm speaking about issues that I personally don't want to talk about, but I'm talking about, and how does she reciprocating that? Is she just listening to me, or is she listening to me and judging me, or is she just ignoring me because she already had her mind made up from the very beginning that she was no longer interested.
Well,
So
let me start by saying, notice in your description of this situation that you only talked about insecurities of men. You're talking about men and sex.
yeah,
You didn't say anything about pleasure. You
okay,
didn't say anything, which is typical for men, that men become so preoccupied with whether or not they're adequate sexually that there's often not even a connection to intimacy, closeness, or pleasure. And so they end up, there's a very well-known sex therapist by the name of Esther Perel, who said that women often experience men approaching them more like a little boy asking for permission than like a man expressing a desire.
huh,
And so that's the problem. And so men become very divorced from their own bodies and their own sense of pleasure and sexuality, and sex becomes more like it's an exam, like a test of your manhood, rather than a way to be closer to another human being and experience mutual pleasure.
okay. And what would be the steps to ensure that as a man able to approach or to forego, a relationship, instead of
Well, I think a good starting place is to stop seeing this as individuals, to stop seeing it as it's my job as a man to please you,
right.
but rather to see it as mutual, which is it's our job together to have a mutually pleasurable, mutually intimate experience. And if it's not as pleasurable or intimate as we want it to be, then that's our problem, not your problem. And so as long as men see it as their job to fix it, then of course they're going to be anxious about performance. But when I think couples who've been together for a longer time sort of figure out that sexuality is something that they both need to talk about and both need to work on
Hmm,
and both need to take responsibility for.
interesting. So what's it like being a psychologist? Because obviously you have a clear spectrum of both psyche of the men, women, but once again, like it's a duo relationship. It's not just one person. It's
Yeah.
it's, it's a combination of both. So what is it like being a psychologist and knowing?
It's a funny question. It's a great question, but it's funny for me because I've literally been a therapist since I was 17 years old, and I'm
What?
70 now. So I've
What?
been a therapist for 53 years, and so I've never had another job. So I don't know what it's like to not be a psychologist, really.
But how do you keep all this in? It's like you take in a lot. Okay, you take in the good, the bad, the great, the ugly. What's that process like, and how do you ground yourself after a session?
That's a great question. So I'm unusual. I mean, I know that I'm not typical, but when I was a kid and I would walk down the street and I'd pass somebody, like that, like they're moving past me,
Yeah.
I would, without thinking about it, I would start holding my body and walking the way, particularly if I saw they were walking in a different way, kind of an unusual way. I would mimic them after they passed me so they didn't think I was making fun of them. I would just try walking the way they walked to see how it felt to walk that way. So I think from the time I was little, I've just always been really interested in other people. And so whereas some people might consider that burdensome, I'm just really so I'm involved now in a conversation with some young therapists who are very, very different from me and have a very different set of politics than mine. And in some cases, they're very sort of irritated with my old-fashioned idea. Most people my age would run away from that as far as they could, and I'm just excited because when I get a chance to talk to people who are different than me, I know I'm going to learn a lot. And so
Exactly.
for me, being a therapist, I learn a lot. I'm talking to people and I'm getting closer with people who are often very different from me. And it's sort of endlessly interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely.
People are, what could be more interesting than people?
No, seriously, like, it's interesting. I mean, that's the reason why, you know, podcast show, I love
Yeah.
talking, engaging, and getting to know different people, the mindset, the way they work in life. In a way, it's a bit of a psychology. It's a bit of psychology in that
Yeah.
sense too. If you think about it, you
I think
know?
so. It's the same idea of trying to understand people.
Yeah. And also learning something new in the process.
Right. But to me, there's nothing more complex in the world than people. So there's nothing more interesting because it's not like you get to a certain point and you say, okay, now I understand people. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how long I've done this. I'm going to end doing it still not understanding people. I mean, I maybe understand a little more now than I did before, but it's not like you would ever could say you understand people.
Yeah, we are definitely complex creatures.
Well, the group of younger therapists who I'm talking with, we're in part having a conversation about race,
Mm.
and what does privilege mean, and what does safety mean, and what's my responsibility as a person, a white person, towards people of color, and what do I need to do, and what do they need to do, and I tell you, if the rest of the country were having those conversations, it'd be a different world. So I wish more
Mm.
people would be interested in conversations like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when it comes to race, since we on a topic, when it comes to race, do you like what is your view on psychological abuse, generational psychological abuse within certain demographics? There's times where within the urban community, the black community, such as myself, that typically a lot of individuals don't have the money or the means or the time to go talk to a therapist or talk to a psychologist to try to help with their problems, to put things in a clear perspective. So therefore, they're going off their own judgment, and most of the
Right.
time, they can end in substance abuse. It can end in um, a preconceived notion that they find when all actuality they're on the precipice of a mental breakdown, uh, which I was definitely. Was in a psych ward for 11 days. That's a long story. But for the most part, because this is more predominantly known in a lot of urban areas, and then it also results in inadvertently harm. You're dealing with so much
Right.
pressure from anxiety in the home life. You're so frustrated, you're angry. The only thing you want to do is just hurt somebody because you mirroring what you experience. You mirroring what you experience in your waking
Right.
life. But when it comes to other nationalities, it's it's a little. I want to say it's easier, but being able to see psychologists, being able to see a therapist, those are a little bit more presented. Those are a little bit more presented. The options are there. Especially, for instance, you go to Ivy League school compared to or Ivy League school or private school compared to like a public school. There's therapists there. You have counselors there.
Right.
There's someone there to talk to help you navigate through your life bullshit. Compared to like a public school or to a school that's in an urban area where those things are uncommon and unheard of. You may get your teacher be like, "Oh, it's okay, it's fine, you good, patting your back, go home."
Well,
So
well, your last point is not quite correct. So I don't think there's a public university or college or junior college in the country that doesn't have counselors. So that is one place where counseling is available. Almost every school provides counseling for their students, typically free of charge.
yeah,
So that
typically,
is the one exception.
typically there are counselors. Yes, I mean, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. You can just say, that, okay, we have a counselor office. Yes, we have a counselor office. But far as the attentiveness of a counselor within their job, it's a lot more profound than it is in a private setting, than a
Yeah.
public setting. I'm just keeping it real. The level of professionalism are
Yeah.
two completely different things. It's just like
Absolutely.
just because we both have a house. I mean, we both have a house, yes, but mine's a home and yours a house. You know, and how would you
I
know
understand.
unless how would you know unless you experience both scenarios?
Right.
Like, okay, yes, I can understand. Okay, cool, cool, cool. It's the same thing. I experienced good friends of mine how they was living and what they gone through, and then
Right.
also thank God when I was actually able to go to a private, a private school. I can tell. I can like it was almost like an anthropology point of view. Like this kind of making a little bit more sense as to why opportunities are presented a lot more, and the opportunities are more achievable because this particular demographic or this particular race, should I say, not even just race, it's just the environmental setting allows it to be possible to achieve such goals because you're not being restricted mentally, emotionally, or physically to achieve those goals compared to the other, whereby you're constantly fighting yourself and your support system is not interested in helping you achieve that. Yes, a title is a title, but the level of professionalism that goes with that title, it's up in the air at that moment. It's really up in the air. It's predominantly known in urban communities. But I say nowadays, it's definitely gotten a lot better. I can say it gotten a lot better. Gen Z's probably say different otherwise, but it's whatever. Okay, it's whatever. I mean, hey, that's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm a bit strong on it, but it's just my opinion. I do believe that everyone have a way to shape and form their own lives, regardless of their circumstances. But just a little help and nudge in the right direction, a little goes a long way. Just
Well, what you're talking about, to put it in context, is a problem that is largely unique to this country because we are the only major industrialized country in the world that does not provide health care to its citizens
yeah,
universally. The only country in the world. And so in other countries, as you're talking about, people from all walks of life have access to therapy that is affordable, that is paid for by their insurance. It's only in this country that people can't afford health care if they don't have enough money. And so that's a problem that we've created for ourselves. And it's a stupid problem.
mm,
It's stupid that we have this problem because therapy is one of the few forms of health care that more than pays for itself. So for example, if I'm the government and I pay $5,000 for you to have therapy, you're going to earn more than that $5,000 back in taxes. We know this. We have lots of data. You will become a more productive citizen and pay back to your community way more than the $5,000 we spent. So you make money. Head Start's the same way. For every dollar spent on Head Start, pays back $3, right? So if you went to a casino and I gave you money and I said every dollar you gamble you get $3 back, how much of the money would you gamble? You gamble all of it.
right.
If I told you you're getting $3 back, but because we think of healthcare as a business in this country, we don't make it universally available. So in this country, if you're poor, you don't get good health care.
No,
Actually, if you're middle class, you don't get good health care either.
yeah. I mean, at this point, is there even such a thing as a middle class nowadays? Just saying, there is, but I mean, is it really is there such thing? 'Cause things are so hard now. Rent is crazy. We pretty much in a recession. We're still dealing with the the prolonged effects from the pandemic. Taxes are skyrocketing, and the American people is like, what is going on? So I don't know. I just know that it would be nice to have therapy covered through insurance. It'd be nice. It would definitely be nice. Sometimes you kind of get, what you get. You have like apps like BetterHelp. I don't know your opinion on BetterHelp, but it's pretty much an online app that you can talk to
I know
therapists.
what it is.
Yeah.
All I know about it is the commercials. And the commercials make me very worried because their marketing pitch is, if you don't like your therapist, change anytime, no problem. But from a therapist's point of view, issues that you have with your therapist are part of the treatment. That's like things will come up with your therapist that are the kinds of issues that come up with everybody else in your life. And so telling people just change therapists when you don't like them is really bad treatment. What you should be saying to the people is, if you have an issue with your therapist, great. That's something for the two of you to work out, not encouraging people to that's like saying if you're dating somebody and you don't like what she does, just dump her and go to the next one.
Right.
Like, no, hopefully hopefully you're going to date somebody that you learn how to work things out with, and that's a person you're going to stay with. So it's the commercials make me very suspicious.
I love that. I love how you put that. That's interesting. It's intriguing. I never knew from a
We
therapist.
have a name for people. We have a name for people who just dump people they date when the first thing goes wrong. It's called single. Is what we call those
Yeah,
people.
yeah, definitely. That's sound about right. But yeah, definitely an interesting perspective from a therapist, psychologist to speak on better help because it do definitely said yeah, you can always get a new therapist if you don't with them, you don't work with them, you don't like them, and all that good stuff. It kind of make your work, it kind of make the therapist seem disposable, which is kind of ironic and
Yeah,
fucked up
exactly.
considering
Exactly.
now therapist is about to have more problems because you're trying to work with a client who have problems. And then it's like,
Right.
yes, it's ridiculous. It's crazy.
So that
Okay.
to be fair,
Yeah.
on the plus side, I think that they are making therapy, I think they're decreasing the stigma attached to therapy. So it's great. So I listen to a lot of sports podcasts, and the sports jockeys talk about being in therapy, which has never happened in my life. That would have never happened before. So I think they are doing a good job helping people talk more about therapy and feel more like it's not a strange thing to do
No,
to go to
I think it
therapy.
was LeBron James who said that he liked to meditate before games, to kind of like
Yeah.
get himself together and meditate, and it was something he learned from his therapist. Yeah, so yeah, it's definitely proactive. I like to meditate. The last time I've been in therapy, which was probably now because I'm a little bit psycho, so talking to you kind of helped me with my craziness. But honestly, I can't remember the last time I actually went to therapy. But I do meditate a lot, and it's something that I
Mhm.
tend to work on. Meditation is a huge
Great.
stigma with meditation as well. That you need to clear your head and no, it actually helps you to really regulate your thoughts and put everything into perspective. Like actually come face to face with what's going on with you, and then also coming up with
No,
a
meditation
reasonable
is great.
solution.
Yeah. I recommend it to people I work with all the time. Meditation is great.
Yeah, definitely. So, good question. Where can listeners and viewers find your works?
If you go to my webpage, which you can put in the show notes, is Avram Weiss, PhD, AVRUMWEISS, PhD. You'll find several things there. One is you'll find a mailing list, and if you join the mailing list, so I write regularly for Psychology Today, and sometimes about men, sometimes about relationships, sometimes about life. Anyway, if you sign up on the mailing list, you will get anything that I publish, and you'll also get a free book, a free ebook about relationships. And the other thing is that if you are reading something I've written and you have a question or a thought or something you want to share with me, I take a lot of pride in saying I return every email I've ever gotten. If you email me and you don't hear back from me, it's because I didn't get your email. So if you have questions or comments, I will respond to them.
Perfect. So all that information will be listed in the description
All on the website.
below.
Yeah.
Everything will be
All on.
listed in the
Yeah.
description below. Yeah, it's been definitely a interesting talk. Definitely gotten a lot.
Good.
One quick question before I let you go. Okay, I'm kind of curious. Are you able to read me from like a psychologist perspective, even though we just met? Okay, they say first impressions are a long lasting impression. In a sense, I'm kind of curious. Like, what is your vibe? Like, get to know me. Me personally, I see that you chill. You like, what I'm saying. You did it all. You know what you do. You about your life. You relaxing. You chilling. You down for the interview. You here to just talk about it. Dash it out. You're strong. You stand strong on your beliefs, and you're willing to grow and adapt. I can see that vibe about you.
No, it's pretty spot on. That's all right. So I'll return the favor. You're obviously curious and you have a sort of inquisitive mind. You're not somebody who just takes things at face value. You're interested in understanding more. You're interested in other people, and you listen because there were a couple of times when I said I disagree with you, and you listened to me. So you're not closed-minded. You're open-minded, and you're interested in other people.
Yeah, that's about right. Definitely inquisitive, definitely down to learn, definitely down to, constantly grow. It's funny you said that. I just recently did an interview with Mama Lou, who is a palmist, and she ended up reading my palm in the episode, and she was like, "Oh, you pretty much said the same thing you said about like my personality, which is like you definitely interested. It seems though you kind of you love to meet new people. You tend to always bounce around from project to project because you're definitely inquisitive and all that. So it's ironic you said that. It's funny from a palmist saying the same thing from a psychologist that it's that's yeah.
Yeah, might be
I,
true.
yeah, it must be true. That's the pillar. That's the pillar. But yeah,
There's an old saying: 9 out of 10 people tell your horse it's time to buy a saddle. So
yeah, that's I've never heard that saying before, but that definitely makes sense. Huh.
you start to hear the same thing from people, you think it might be true.
Yeah, no, seriously, if you start to hear the same thing, it's definitely true, you know? Yeah.
Yeah,
But anyways, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, Doctor.
me too.
And Dr.
Thanks
Wise.
for inviting me.
Dr. Wise.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
yes.
Got it. All right, Dr. Wise, thank you so much again for coming on the Dash It Out show. All this information will be provided below. And yeah, that's about it. About conclude this episode.
Dude.